Hello everyone, this video is for lab 2.5.2.4, which is about working with Python and SQLite. Okay, so now like in the scenario in this lab we are going to learn how to connect to a relational database, place queries and retrieve the data through a Jupyter notebook. Okay, so what is needed here to refresh a very brief introduction about relational databases, and then here in this link you find some videos and introduction to SQL, and there also in the last one about some SQLite command line. However, so if you already know them, it's much better. If you don't know them, you don't need, so just follow this video. Okay, so why we need to create a database, or why is SQLite? Because it's necessary, because with SQLite is a library that implements a self-contained transactional SQL databases engine. So we don't need here, if we are going to use SQLite, you don't need a server to have the database on it. So here is mentioned that eliminates the need for an SQL server. A simple SQLite utility called SQLite 3, which can be installed on Raspberry Pi. This also greatly simplifies the SQL database process. Okay, we also are going to install, or we will need the CSV kit, which is also a kit used for CSV files, and which is command separated values. This is CSV. Okay, so first let's start to install the SQLite and CSV kit. So to reach this, we need to start a new terminal. Now we are going to use Linux, and here it's also, let's just put it. Okay, and here we are. Okay, so let's now try to follow the code. Okay, so let's go down and install SQLite. Okay, to install SQLite, we need to use this first command to refresh the packages on the Linux. And the second one, so here is refreshing or updating. And the second one is going to apt get and then -y for giving yes, and then install SQLite 3. Now is updating, and now let's install SQLite. Okay, as you can see here that nothing is already up to date and is installed, so nothing is already installed there. The second command is we need to install CSV kit, which is a Python library or a Python module. Okay, and as you can see here, it's already satisfied, is already installed on the Raspberry Pi. Okay, now let's take a look on SQL. So they are both installed. We can start now using them to create a database and its tables. So when we talk about a table, you can see that this is a database, and here is an ID, there is a name, and there's gender, race, and force sensitive. Okay, so consider the table below, and the table, this one contains information about 8 individuals. So here 8 rows we have, and a row and column fashions. Okay, to ensure the consistency of the file location, consider working from the like we should be in this netbook. So let's move to my files, and here pwd, that you can see that I am here on home pi netbox, and there's my file. This is my current working directory. Okay, so we are there already, so we don't need to move more. Then let's now create the first database, which is called phonebook.db. Okay, to create a database, so we use this command SQLite3 and then the name of the database. And here we are inside the database itself. Okay, so here we have some text or explanation about the process. The SQLite utility displays some versions information and presents its prompt. This is what we have seen already. This is the version, and this is the prompt that we received. Okay, so create a table in the database from the SQLite prompt. Issue the command below to create a table. So we are going to create a table. The name of the table is going to be called coworkers, and this table has the first field is working ID. The second one is which is the type of this field is going to be integer. The second one is the name with variable characters, so for 20. And the title is also a string of 20 characters, and then the last field is going to be the number, which is an integer. Okay, so let's execute this command, and then don't forget the end. It should be a semicolon. Okay, so after we created this table, we are going to create another table here. This table is going to be called department, and there is a department ID also integer. The name is a string of 20 characters, and the number is also integer. Okay, let's do this also. So in this database, we are going to have two tables. Okay, here we have an error. Okay, so as you can see that so we have to create. So let's do this. Okay, now it's okay, both of the tables are created, and now to quit the SQLite we type dot, then quit. Okay, we return back to the Linux terminal. Okay, here we also have some notice that the dot, and a notice story that the dot before the quit command in the cell above usually like in SQLite passes lines enters by the users on the SQLite library for execution. However, input lines that begin with a dot are interrupted by the SQLite3 utility itself. Okay, also known as dot commands. These commands are often used to change the output format of queries or execute certain pre-packaged query statement. However, also here we also have another note when SQLite databases are useful because the database and all its tables are contained in one single .db file and stored in the disk. From the Py's terminal, you can use the ls command to check this database is there that we just created. Okay, so let's try type ls here. And we find this one here. Let's list the content of this file here. Now we are going to use a Linux command ls-l for long, and then the name of the file. Here we will see the content about this file. So here you can see that the owner of this file is a root, and there is also the user, and here we have some more information about it, and this is the file here. Okay, when it's created and so on. Now in part 2, let's try to enter data and query the database. Okay, so let's first enter the SQLite tree while selecting the file, and we will move directly to this database. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so we are inside the SQLite. Now let's try to enter for the table we used or we created called coworkers. We are going to enter for ID 101, the name here and what information we entered there. So the first one is work ID, the second one is the name, the third one is the title, and the fourth one is the number. Okay, so this is how we can enter the data to the table inside the database. Okay, so as you can see now, it's very simple. We just have to remember the fields inside the table and the table name, and then we can enter the data. But this is not a practical way, because imagine that you have a file that you have to do this. So you need to repeat the process, copy paste many times. Okay, so there is another alternative way that you can usually use the CSV file and import the CSV file into the database itself. Okay, so let's start another terminal. And let's go up, and then here we start a new terminal here. And in this terminal, we are going to have this file, the content of this file. Let's just copy this one, and then we start nano the file, and then we put the place the content, and then we save the file, and then we like check it again. Okay, let's do this again. pwd, which should be inside my files. So let's move to my files, ls here, and now let's create a file called, for example, let's remember what was coworkers.csv. And then let's paste here the content, and then Control X, and then Y, and then enter. Then ls again. Here is the file, and then let's list the content of this file. Sorry, it was, and this is the file now.csv. Okay. Another way, you can also use Jupyter itself, and this way you are going to, like, through Jupyter you can create this file here that it is, if the file is existed, then delete it. This is also a Linux command, and here echo the content of this file and save it, or redirect the output to this file. And then you can just be careful that this is append, not overwrite. If you just put one of them, then you are overwriting the content of the file, and at the end you will have only the last one here. But when you do double larger sign this way, like 2 times, then you will append always. However, I'm not going to do this step, but if you would like to practice, this is only for an Linux. I mean, this is only a Linux skills. Okay, now we check the file. We already checked the file here, and there is the data. Now let's import the data into the database. Okay, so we are here again in the same terminal, and then let's first go to so we are here already, and let's first drop the coworkers table, because we already modified this table. We don't need it anymore, so let's drop this table. So simply we drop, and then table, and coworkers. Okay, now let's check the table, or the tables. We only have one table, which is department, because we deleted the co-workers. Okay, now what we need to do, let's close this SQLite. And do the process like importing the content of the file of CSV file to a database. You have to use the terminal CSV SQL utility to create a new table in the phone book database and retrieve the data contained in the key workers file. Alright, so there is a command here called CSV SQL. This is a command already part of the CSV kit that we installed. So let's do this. But just to keep in mind that a file I called here was the name of the file C workers. So here C workers. Okay, so let's see it here. CWORKER. Okay. and seems good. Now let's again move to check the table or the tables inside the database. Let's start SQL again, and then again tables, and here we have two tables again. This one has the new data that we imported from the database. Now let's do some queries on the database itself. So we are there in the same place here. Now let's try to select this first query, which is select everything from C workers. Now the table is C workers, not CO, and here we have everything. Here we have the ID, name, title, and the number. All right. What about if we are going to use select SQL command shown above is the character that's asterisk to select everything. To display name of the entries with the JD job title, use the following command. So now we are going to display a name for or information about the title or someone named JD. Okay, or Yadi. So let's do this again. Select name. Now for this one whose name Yadi or Jadi, we are going to select the name for anyone with the name. Like let's see here. This is 1, this is 2. So we will have the name, which is this one and this one. Okay. Here just we need to change it to be this one. So select the name, which is the name of the field or the column for where title for anyone with a title ready. And here we have no such column name. Here we have okay. Here as you can see we have a problem, and let's go back and check what was the problem. Let's check our data, and the data is here, and let's check up what happened. Okay, so here what was the problem that I did not copy the first row into the file, and that's why if you now let's check the file again. As you can see it's missing the first row. Alright, so then it's a good practice, and let's do the second let's do this one here. So let's run it, and now let's check again the file. Okay, ls. Now we have the file, the correct one, coworkers. Let's check it again. And now they are here, so let's delete the old one that I made, that I created in the first time. So we have the new file here. Okay, so what we need to do again, let's check again the tables. We have two tables. I would have to delete this one, so let's delete it again. And to delete this one, let's again return back here and use the drop. Okay, so let's drop table again. Now we want to drop this one, so it's C worker, and then again tables. Now we have this table again. Then let's import the table one more time. Now we don't need to modify anything because the table is co-workers. And now let's enter the file, check the tables. We have two tables again. And now let's move forward and continue the queries. Here let's check everything inside this table. Okay, now it's fine. Let's check now again everything, bring any content of the field name when the title is Yeti or Jetty. Now we have look, and we have op1, which are there here. Okay. Now automate the process with Python. So still now we used only Linux. Now we will do the same process but with Python. What we need to use, we need the three models. The first one is SQLite. This is to manipulate or deal or implement the databases and deal with it. And then we have pandas, you know it, and we have also Python plot to generate figures. Okay, so first we are going to import SQLite and then import pandas as a PT, and from matplot import pyplot as PLT, and also this one is to have the figures or the inside this page itself. And then we need to connect to a database. Okay, so we have a database and we need to connect to the database. Then we have to use a method called connect. Okay, so then after using the method connect, we are going to use the first SQLite tree that we imported, .connect, and then we specify the file that we need to connect to it. Here, this is a connection for like in another word, that you imagine that you have a server, database server, and you connect to the server. But with the SQLite tree, we don't need this, as I mentioned at the beginning. Then we can connect to the server through this database through SQLite tree. Okay, so this output of this is going to be an object stored in a variable called connection, or this one. So this is the first step. The second step, we need to have cursor. The cursor is acting as a movable pointer inside the database. A cursor here is to control a structure that will enable us to navigate through tables and records. The cursor is important because it specifies what cell or table, column, or row is to be read through or written to. Okay, to create a cursor, we just need to use this method and the connection we already specified. Okay, so we will have the variable to save the output of this method, and the code is going to be like here. We import SQLite 3, we import pandas, we import matplot and line. As you already know, we made the connection, we specified the cursor. Okay, let's do this. Now let's try to execute a query. Now the query we just created, select name from coworkers, everything, and then we execute the query inside using the CUR variable with the method called execute. So let's just, then we have here the output, as you can see there. All right, so this is what we have like seen so far. Now to print the output there, we just can print here, and here we have the output. Okay, so we have here the execution, and we execute it, and then to print it out, then we make for loop for this, and then we print a row for each of them. Here we have the database. Okay, now we have some challenges. And the first challenge here is to provide the code to query the names of all the princes, as you can see here. So this is one, for example. So let's search to everyone or every with the princes, then we can print his name. All right, so to do it, actually we can use the query again. So the query, let's take it from here. Okay, and let's insert a cell. We don't need the database anymore, the terminal I mean. So we are here. And let's insert cell below. and this provide the code to query the names of all the princes. Okay, so let's put the one here. And what we need to do, the query now in this case is going to be select name. We need to print the name, right, of all the princes. So we have here the select name from coworkers, right, where the title equals princes. Let's take this one from here. Okay, so one more time. You remember now this problem. So since we started with double quotes and Python will consider this is as the end of the double quote what is here, so you have to solve it, and you should already know how to solve it and why now I changed this to this format. Okay, so the query now to provide the names of all the princes. So here select name from the coworkers table where the title is princess, and then we can make a for loop, and then we can generate the output. Okay, so let's try, for example, to take this one from here, put it there, then let's run it here. Okay, this is also important. We need to execute the query. Okay, so let's check again here. Okay, so I think the problem here, we have to type where title equals prince. Okay, so now the where was missing. However, so this is the query for the first one. Let's copy this and try to use it again. So the second one, provide the code query, the name of all princes that, okay, already solved this. Query the names of all the princes and the debt collector. So not only the princes now, we also need the debt collectors. Okay, so let's insert a new cell below and then put this the same. But here we also need to specify the second one, where first here the title equals prince, and we need to add or the title equals debt collector. Okay, so this is the second one here. Let's try to run it, and here we have these two, the first one and the second one, and let's see the princess here, or let's see the debt collector is this one here. We don't see anything else. Okay, provide the code to query the names and the numbers of all Jedi. Alright, so let's do this again. Also, let's insert a cell below, and now again let's take the first one from here, just copy and paste it here. What we actually need to find that we need the name and we need number fields where title is Jadi. Let's try to run this, and here we have them. Let's check the data. This is the one. So we have the name and we have the number for both of them. Okay, and provide the code to query the names of the droids. Okay, so let's do this again. Here we have to also specify that okay, so we have the name of them. Let's check them. This is the first name and this is the second name. Okay, so there is the difference here, that the title, now since we need to be a name of all droids, so this is why here it's not only the name like what we searched before, Princess or Yeti or Jedi. Now we need this, like we have this name and this is only part of it. Okay, so here we have to use the like, and then we put the percent here. Okay, so as you can see here, it's important also to put the percent sign. Okay, so that's it for this lab. Thank you, and I will see you in the next.